Hello there, Unlearner. Welcome to this episode of the UnLearners Podcast. And this episode is shot live from our annual retreat, the UnLearning Experience 2024. And today it is an absolute honor to have someone that I deeply respect, but also genuinely actually deeply care about as part of this conversation. So she was able to facilitate a session for us earlier on as part of the retreat program on conscious connecting, but it was individually focused on how we can consciously connect as individuals. But this conversation is going to be about how we externally focus that with other individuals, other people we connect with. How do we consciously connect with them while still staying true to ourselves? And that's really the first question I'm going to go to. But before we even go there, Raksha Mahabeer is a coach, a consultant, and this is my favorite part here, mindfulness advocate, someone who is gaga about being present, about mindfulness, about wellness. And so having her have this conversation with us is a true honor.
The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow. Learn, change, grow. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow.
Raksha, welcome to the UnLearners Podcast.
Thank you, Zanele. I have been following your podcast, and I can say it's an absolute honor to sit in the seat and chat with you today.
Thank you very much. So I want to just start here, Raksha, because our viewers and listeners who are engaging with this content at the moment were not parts of the initial session that you had. I want to just start by having you give us an idea of what conscious connecting is all about, but then also maybe one or two key points about what it's about when it comes to us as individuals before we have a deeper conversation about the externals.
I think the type of world that we live in at the moment is incredibly complex. It's busy, and we have multiple roles to play. And sometimes we lose ourselves in the busyness of this world. Externally, from what's required of us, but often we don't take the time to acknowledge how internally we've lost that connection with self. So as a result, we're living crazy, stressed, and dare I say, pretty superficial lives. So the purpose around running this morning's masterclass on conscious connecting internally was to help us to work towards a place of more awareness, alignment, and depth in our lives. And that's truly what it's about. Slowing down, clearing the clutter, reducing the noise, so we can truly reconnect with who we are at our core and make decisions for our lives accordingly, which leads to a happy, more fulfilled life, and then showing up in a different way for everything beyond that needs our time, care, and attention.
So it's that idea of living more from the inside out rather than the outside in, right? And that's where we all train to be. You look at all of the different forms of stimuli that are happening around you and okay, how do I respond to that? So you're almost reacting on a consistent basis, right?
Exactly, and I love the word you use. How much of our existence is reactive versus creative? Coming from inside is I'm consciously choosing how I respond in the scenario. And as a result, I'm operating from creation as opposed to reaction.
That's good. But see, here's the thing, Raksha, and I'm going to dive right into how this relates to other people. Because yes, it's so much easier to be intentional and to control when it's just about you and consciously connecting with yourself and drawing from your energy and what feels right in the moment and ebbing and flowing. But as soon as you add the complexity of other human beings into the equation, everything just gets really funny. So my question here to start us off would really be, what is the integration of me tuning in, consciously connecting with self, and then managing the complexity of the person I'm speaking to is responding or acting from where they are with what they know, what they have access to. So talk me through how you envisage that happening.
Yeah. First of all, sometimes when we are challenged in this space, we tend to isolate. So I think the first thing is to acknowledge we exist in this world in relation to other people. So that's never going to go away. So let's consciously decide to work towards making that better. So my answer to your question is going to start again internally. So the first one is know thyself. Know every aspect of your being. What makes you tick? The what, where, why, when, who, how of me then dictates who I want to engage with and how I will engage. A huge part of that is our values. And call it what you want, what you like, our principles, our values, our purpose. It comes up in relating to others. And often there's a feeling of tension or discomfort. It often sits in the tummy where I go, I don't like this. It doesn't feel right. It's rubbing up wrong against me. That's where we need to stop, pay attention, and listen. So the first one is knowing thyself and understanding our values. The second one is to operate from a place of integrity. Too often we put up the mask, oh, well, I have to deal with you. And I do it from the place of resistance constantly. So actually, I need to work with you, but actually, I don't think that I like you, but I'm insisting that we got to get this done. Let's operate in integrity here, internally first. So my thought, my word, and my deed is in alignment. So I realized I'm feeling a little challenged with Sadele. I don't know why. I need to get this body of work done. I need to work on this project. I need to create this with her, or our kids go to the same school, whatever that may be. Acknowledge, be truthful, honest, authentic with yourself. And from that place of awareness, then only can you move into solution mode. Often if there's resistance, then this is where conflict arises in the world. This feeling of victimhood and helplessness. I don't feel good. I have to deal with her. Oh, her again. I'm going to see her at the kids drop off, or I'm going to go into this meeting with her. And then it becomes a challenge. So first of all, acknowledge something is not right here. And what do I need to do? What is within my power to rectify this situation? And that's when the awareness, and when I was speaking about the internal conscious connecting, is practicing this internal awareness to go, is it that our values don't align? Is it that she intimidates me? Is it that actually she knows more on the subject and I don't? And when we go into meetings, I feel like she's overshadowing me. And maybe the true power lies in the courage to be vulnerable with ourselves, to be real around, I don't know as much as Zanele knows on this topic. So is it about saying, hey, can we have a coffee? I want to talk to you about something. I'm sure you must have noticed it's been a little hard with our last couple of interactions, and I feel like it's coming from this place. Do you want to meet me halfway and help me to get to a place where we can do better in achieving this common objective? I think especially in our South African context, we have this, this need to put up the facade and the mask that everything's right and everything's perfect all the time. And when we have the courage to be vulnerable and open ourselves up to true, real connecting, then we are able to find ourselves in a place of that creative, conscious, creative space.
What I'm getting from what you're saying, Raksha, is that a big part of the mask coming up is because the knowing thyself hasn't quite happened. And I want to go back to something that you mentioned during your masterclass. You mentioned that there was one experience, and please feel free not to go into the actual experience, but there was an experience that happened and you felt your tummy acting a little bit weird. And you didn't just go, oh, my tummy is not quite okay. You went, what is this actually saying? Because and it's that whole idea of connectedness, right? That nothing exists in isolation. But as human beings, we have the tendency to go, oh, that's really strange. Oh, that person's doing that. Instead of going, what's the bigger picture? Is there a part of this picture that I'm not seeing in this moment? So can you talk a little bit to what tools you used and how you used just that idea of going, okay, there's the idea of the tummy in the moment, but what else is there in order to come back and be a little bit more conscious and then interact better with the individuals that were part of the situation?
Thank you for sharing that example. You know, there's an amazing book called The Body Keeps Score. And you know, it's speaking to us all the time. And if we take the time to tap into that awareness, we can unlock a depth of knowledge around ourselves. So that is a lovely example, because actually so much of our emotion sits in that solar plexus and that tummy area. So the example I shared was something that upset me, or feeling physically upset and not accepting it on the physical level. This human system is a complex interplay between body, mind, soul, spirit, mental, emotional. There's just a complex interplay happening all the time. So very important tools that I use. Number one is my breath. When I'm stressed, feeling insecure, feeling worried about something, if a sudden event has happened that has triggered me, and you actually feel a physiological response in your body. I was chatting to one of our other retreat participants here, and we were chatting about the physical response that happens when we are stressed. We were speaking about the anxiety around public speaking sometimes. And when we stand up in front of a crowd of people, suddenly our palms are sweaty. But what's actually happening is when we are nervous, we start breathing in a very shallow pattern. We have 3 lobes of the lung. And when we become nervous, we only breathe to the topmost lobe of the lung. When we breathe in a shallow manner, you are physically not taking enough oxygen into your body. Your cells are not oxygenated, and your body has a physical reaction. Your heart rate goes up, your palms get sweaty, and every human body is a unique system as well. So what happens in your body, Zanele, is not the same as what happens in my body. So it's about taking the time to slow down and tap into that. For me, the easiest way is breath. Acknowledge something's going on and practice deep, long, slow breaths. In and out. And usually if we just do our breathing through the nostrils, it helps to slow that down and bring a regular pace. So one of my tools is definitely breath. The other one, which has really taken years to put into practice, is the ability to have what I call a witness mentality. So we are really busy, and I understand the pressures that we have and the roles we have to play and the demands of life, that we are stuck in the doing of life. Can we spend a little bit more time in the being of a human being, in the ability to remove ourselves from the situation and become a witness to what's happening? And often there's a different level of depth that unfolds, that goes, where's this anxiety coming from? Am I scared? Am I feeling a little bit self-conscious? Or am I just hungry?
Right?
It's actually that. So I think those are some of the tools that I use in those situations.
I really, really love that, because, and when I think about it, I'm thinking about how when you and I are able to consciously connect with self, our response to others changes completely. Then we're not in a space, like you were saying, of victimization. We're not in a space where we're reacting to everything. So let's say we've got leaders that are listening to this. We've got individuals that are just thinking about their personal lives. How do I better and consciously connect with the people in my life? And sometimes it's maybe to help my team be better cohesive, get the results a little bit quicker, whatever it is. But maybe someone's just thinking to build better relationships. Once I've been able to consciously connect with self and really tap in there, maybe I'm having a conversation with someone and I stop and I go, ooh, and maybe I do some of the exercises and I take a breath. What then? Is there something I can do that will help me better connect with other people, but also, and the term that I often use is hold space for others better as a conscious connector? What does that look like?
I think especially in business scenarios or workplace scenarios, it's important to remember that we are here for a common purpose. There's often a common goal in a business. We want to reach specific business objectives, departmental objectives, project objectives. It's always nice to remember how those objectives tie into my personal objectives. I want to do great at this job. I want to succeed. I want to earn that salary at the end of the month and use that to achieve all my personal objectives. So I think the first layer or level is just at a very human level, that we are all here for a common business or collective purpose that feeds into our personal purpose. I think that's a great starting point, because sometimes we lose sight of it. You're just here for the glory and the limelight. Or you just want to show how you're the best at doing this job. No, actually, I'm here because I have a part to play in this project where you're doing X and I'm doing Y, and we're coming together to achieve this. I think there's also a huge amount of work around intentionality for leaders. Being intentional around building great team dynamics by allowing safe space for conscious connecting. Conscious connecting is not always going to be comfortable and warm and fuzzy. It's about having the courage to have some tough conversations. That actually, Zanele, you come from a different background and maybe a different culture. I come from a different background and a different culture. So how you perceive a situation may be quite different to how I perceive it. When it's in a work scenario, when there's deadlines and KPIs and objectives and milestones and all of that in place, the stress levels rise. And suddenly it leads to conflict in the workplace. So I think start from that space where we know that we have a common objective, and then have the courageous conversations around what your interpretation of this may be versus mine, and how we meet each other halfway to achieve the common goal.
I like that. And I think a big part of that as well, Raksha, and you did already touch on this, is the expectations, right? That we come in with a lot of the time, and how our expectations really are driven by so many different things, assumptions we've made, socializations we have around who we are, and we come in with this picture of how I want to show up in the situation. So what I expect from there often is not openly communicated or shared or on the table. And then by the time the project is over, or by the time the conversation is over, you're sitting there going, oh, I'm still not too happy, or I'm still, where I was right at the beginning. Do you think that expectations, or at least declaring and openly just sharing what those are, does somehow contribute to being a better or more conscious connector at all?
Yeah, and I think it's touching on a point that I wanted to add in a little earlier as well, is definitely around vulnerability. Vulnerability, and I think, again, in the context of a work scenario or a project environment, the vulnerability to say, hey, our deadline's coming up in 1 week, and I'm not sure I understand how to put this aspect together. Do you want to spend 5 minutes with me on it? And I'm sure we can get it right. That aspect of it. And it comes back to this mask of perfection. I got it under control. And only when it's too late is it falling apart, because now we've missed deadline. So I think that's a huge part of it as well. This ability to be vulnerable, intentionality, and going into these spaces of courageous conversations.
Would you say, Raksha, presence, and this is one of the things you touched on in the masterclass, would you say presence plays a big role when it comes to not just conscious connecting as far as the individual goes, but also as far as conversations with others? Because if we are, and for me, those words are almost synonymous, right? The conscious connecting and the presence, and being present to what's happening in the moment. I always say, there's always something to learn in every single moment. But when you choose to check out, you will miss it. You will miss the glory of the moment. You will miss the gift of the moment. But we have created such a societal culture where we're checking out all the time and then missing all of these opportunities to, I guess, in a way, consciously connect with something bigger that might be happening. What are your thoughts on that?
On a personal level, presence is huge. It just opens up a different level and a different dynamic of existence. When it comes to team dynamics and group scenarios, I think that we are experiencing challenges there now more than ever, because the opportunities for distractions are endless. And this commitment, again, it comes down to setting group targets, aligning to group goals and objectives. And what comes along with that is setting agreed boundaries. So we're not going to have a 1.5 hour meeting. We're going to have a 30-minute. Can I ask for presence? Can we leave all devices out the room? Can we have this discussion in a focused manner? And often when we're able to give each other the gift of that presence, it opens up more efficiency.
It's true, hey? And isn't it interesting as well how the very things that so many of our systems, like let's say, for example, the corporate system and how so many corporates work, is almost counterintuitive to what actually makes us more productive. Like you're saying, when we are more conscious, we're more present, then it means we do work faster, we work in flow, we produce better work. So many other things that are part of what we actually do want to achieve would happen so much better. Maybe I want to close off by asking, why do you think it's still such a challenge for so many organizations across the globe to buy into the idea of mindfulness and wellness, but not just buy into it in the sense of I see how it, or maybe I just want to tick a box, but intentionally just saying, I understand how this actually links to my bottom line. Let me invest in my people. Let me invest in the well-being of our team, because everyone gets served by that. Why do you think that's still such a challenge?
I think it comes back to the word that's come up a lot in our chat, and that's courage. I think it's going to take a very different level around a reality check to have the courage to do maybe a wellness audit, some sort of a litmus test to check in on the wellness state of our current teams and our workforces. I think sometimes it's easier to look away and go, let's do a little meditation session. Let's do a team building spa day or something, versus a sustainable, impactful intervention that is consistently measuring the wellness of your employees. I think that now in today's world, it's too easy to medicate or distract, and not choose what in the short term is a harder journey, but in the long term is a far more rewarding and sustainable way of being. So I sincerely hope that it is shifting. I'm hoping that in the post-COVID world, our eyes have opened and our consciousness has increased. I often say that COVID was the rise of the conscious consumer. And to just switch on our awareness to what's actually happening in the world, how I'm buying goods and services, how I'm interacting in different teams, who I choose to do business with, who I choose to be employed by. I'm sincerely hoping that shift has happened. And certainly in the circles that I operate, I'm having more and more of these conversations. But to really have the courage as individuals within these big systems to start having those conversations.
And start to move the needle, however gradually forward, though, in that direction. And sometimes it can be something that causes us to be quite despondent when we feel like we are in some kind of an organizational setup. And yes, the wellness is being done, but it's being done in a very different way. And one of the conversations we had is that you can do like you were saying, you can have the wellness day, you can have the day where everyone gets a jab or whatever it is. But the other side of it is, do you have a system that supports the longevity or the sustainability of that? Otherwise, it's just a little tick, or it's just a little bump in the graph, a spike in the graph, and then it's all gone and we can't sustain it.
Unfortunately, we live in a what's in it for me world, whether it's at an individual level or at an organizational level. It is the reality. So how do we work with that and shift it to our advantage? What's in it for me as an individual to prioritize my wellness? As a result of the wellness, how do I show up in a work scenario in a better, more productive, more present way that allows me to progress within the environment and achieve whatever personal goals I want? As an organization, what's in it for me to take care of my individuals within the organization and see the ripple effect then impact my triple P bottom line?
Love it. One step for leaders who are listening to this going, where do I start? Is there something I haven't done? Especially if they've done a lot of things, they've had all the days, all the consultants come in. Is there one little tweak that they might add to their strategy with regards to helping their teams not just consciously connect with self, but consciously connect with each other to drive results? Anything they can try?
I think that if wellness isn't an objective, please get it in the strategy, get it on the cards and put something in place to have the courage to see where you are at.
I love it.
If it is in place, have a real check, a reality check on how impactful it is, how sustainable it is, and whether you are tracking and measuring that. And as part of a business strategy, also link that to your bottom line and see how that affects you as you put more energy, time, attention, resources into that work.
Oh, I love that idea. So not just the measuring idea, but we've invested so much. What are the results telling us is coming from that? And maybe even if that's not what you see, you're not seeing a correlation, maybe having a conversation with the team might be worth it to go, this is what we've invested that you may have requested, and this is the results that we got. And then maybe going, so then what is it? So it becomes more of a collaborative conversation. What is it that you would love to see? And then matching the results to that again, going back to the team and say, okay, so we tried this initiative that you wanted, that you suggested, and here are the results. So what is it that we can do? Then it becomes collaborative and less one-sided.
And also don't try to do everything by yourself. Lean in. There are experts in these fields. There are people who do this for a living, who understand how to come in and audit the wellness within your business and craft, not an off-the-shelf, okay, everyone, we're going to have a meditation session once a month, every month, but craft an intervention specifically for what the needs are of your team or your workforce, and craft the sustainability measure around that accordingly as well.
Fantastic. Raksha, thank you so much for your time. I could talk to you all day, or this, because we have fallen into that trap a few times. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today.
Oh, thank you, Zanele. It's such a delight to be with you.
Thank you very, very much. All right, UnLearner, thank you very much for taking the time to either watch or listen to this episode of the UnLearners Podcast with coach, consultant, wellness, and mindfulness advocate, Raksha Mahabeer. It's been a pleasure having you. And if you are feeling a little bit of FOMO around this environment, make sure that you register for the upcoming UnLearning Experience Retreat. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you. Bye for now.
The UnLearners. Learn, change, grow. Learn, change, grow. The UnLearners. The UnLearners. The UnLearners. Learn, change, grow.